So, Lee Evans, as we've just said, namesake of my favourite comedian, or one of my favourite comedians of all time. Lovely to meet you, sir. How are you?
And you, mate? Yeah, like I said, I'm a little bit frustrated this morning, but we move, and it's good. It's good to be in the position that I'm in. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, mate. Nearly Christmas.
Not far
Been a
off.
good year. Been a difficult year, but a very, very good year as well.
That's all we can hope for, really, is a decent year where we make it through to the other end, because there's a lot of people that don't end up making it through to the end. And yeah, I to be honest, it's been a bit of a tumultuous year for myself, but still at the same time, I'm kind of ending on a joyous note, because it's almost been a rebirth for myself. So for those that don't know you and don't know what you do and who you are, introduce yourself. Let them know all about how I came across you in the first place, and what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so obviously my name's Lee. I've got my own podcast, which is called the Zito Run Podcast. I called it the Zito Run because I was looking for a good name, and I thought I want something different. And I found this word in the Urban Dictionary, and it means to go on a bender in America. And what it means is to often travel to an undesirable location under the influence of drugs or mental health. So I thought, I like that. I'm going to sneeze. There you are. Yeah,
Look to the light.
I spent the best part of 20 years taking drugs. It wasn't just drugs that I was addicted to, I was addicted to drama, sex, porn, just that life, lads, and it's one of them, and it just wasn't a very difficult place to walk out of. Like I said to you before, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but this year been the hardest year of my life. I'm doing a level 7, a master's degree in trauma-informed psychology now. I've just finished a diploma in neuroscience. I use something called NLP. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah, neuro-linguistic programming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the most powerful tool I've learned to have conversations with other people. I really focus on the words that we use now. I think for a lot of people, we don't really understand what words we're using and why we're using them. We just tend to ruminate through stories, and this is my life. And 99.9% of the time, it's not reality. It's our version of reality. I'm on the verge of starting a business next year, which is the Zito Institute for Performance and Beliefs. And I'm just clinical hypnotherapy, training in clinical hypnotherapy as well. And I'm just really enjoying where I am at the moment, mate. Similar to yourself, these conversations need to be had. There's far too many people killing themselves, men or women. Far too many people who struggle day by day in silence. And I think by what myself and you are doing, it allows other people to unconsciously open up and start doing the same. So, I appreciate you as well, mate.
Thank you. And likewise, brother. And I think it is, I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'm not comparing myself to your journey, but I think, I was at one point the lads life, in terms of you go out on a weekend, you shove 180 quid up your nose and drop as many pills as you want and go and have a party and do it all again the weekend after. And it is by far too much the norm, I think. And I'm under no illusion that there is good substances, there is bad substances. We've seen relatively recently a massive surge in psilocybin and the research that's going into that's one personal thing that's massively helped me. And then there's MDMA, which is having loads of research done into for PTSD and depression. And I think same with society as a whole, the whole mentality and the whole use for substances and the whole ritualistic element. And same with alcohol. Alcohol used to be a thing of, it's almost like a rite of passage. It was when I turned 18, it was like first pint with my dad or with my granddad, it was actually. Whereas now I don't see it being that way out anymore. It's, kids are drinking way earlier for longer without adult supervision and getting absolutely blottoed. And it becomes then a problem. There's no ritual element to it. So with sort of, I'm getting a bit of feedback. Just bear with me 1 minute. Let me see if I can. Sorry, I listen to myself half enough. I don't want to listen to myself anymore. Yeah, I'll just turn that down slightly. Right. So, yeah. So I think with the ritualistic element of things, whether it be society, drugs, life, I think that's what's missing from this almost existence of excess. And it kind of brings us on to this Christmas episode in terms of excess. That's the thing this year I'm more struggling with than anything is, especially with a young daughter. I've got a 10-year-old daughter and she wants everything under the sun, as little daughters want from their dads. Is they want a pony, they want this, they want that, they want the other. And I'm really, really struggling with getting excited about Christmas like I used to, because I see you don't need that. You're not going to, you're going to enjoy that for a week and then it's going to be gone and it's 200 quid. Like there's no point in it. There's no purpose to that. And I see it constantly, you walk through shops like B&M Bargains and stuff like that, where it's just aisles and aisles and aisles of useless tat that kids don't really give a rat's ass about in the greatest sense of the word. And then you've got people that buy presents for people that they don't like or they don't speak to all year, and you put yourself under so much pressure to deliver this sort of day that's meant to be amazing. And for people that won't piss on you if you're on fire. And I think it's almost like a microcosm of what society is and why it pushes people into these depths of despair where unfortunately they end up taking their own life. What's your thoughts on that? I know it's a bit depressing to start for a Christmas episode.
No, I think Christmas, obviously it's turned into this hedonistic day. I call it, it's a part of hedonism, right? This materialistic day that, becomes more about presence. And one thing, somebody asked me, where do I want to be when I'm older? And my objective is I want to be an old man sat around a dinner table at Christmas with a family. It was something, I've never had Christmas with my mum and dad ever in my whole life. Similar to, I think you mentioned your grandparents. My grandparents were a huge part of my childhood. Pretty much, I called them my mum and dad, And I just want to be sat around a table having a conversation with my children, my grandchildren, my future wife. That's what Christmas should be about, but that's what life should be about. I think we use Christmas as a time to see family that we don't really see during the year. And granted, everybody's busy, but we should do it more often because, we don't realize, I think we're very caught up in our own lives and things change very, very fast in life. Things have changed so much for me in a couple of years that, Christmas should be an every week or once a month thing for families, and we don't do it. It's turned into this day where spending, £1,000 on things that children will never use. The last 2 Christmases I've bought presents and they've still been sat there 4 months later,
I used a trick this year. So I did a little thing with my daughter. I said, I asked her, I said, right, what I want you to do is I want you to name me 3 presents that I bought you last year. And she named one. And I said, you tell you what then, I'm going to buy 33% of what you've asked for this year. And she was like, well, no, that's not fair. I went, yeah, but that 33%, you'll remember every single thing that I get you. And that's the sort of the excess that we talk about is kids don't need it. They want the dad, or they want the mum, they want the family with them. And they want to have fun. Sort of that. I know Gary Vee talks about it quite a lot. A man that I sort of I do admire. I think he's really good in a
Yeah,
sense.
he's cool.
He was way off the mark with the NFTs, but
Yeah.
but but he is very sound bloke. And he was saying like the biggest thing that's going to be taking off in the next few years is experience. Experiences the experience industry is people want to experience stuff like surfing and snowboarding and skydiving and things like that. And it's that element for me I know through my own personal experiences that lasts forever. It, you know, I draw on, strength that I've discovered when I was climbing mountains or bravery that I discovered when I did a bungee jump. It's that sort of stuff that will last and will live with you for as long as you can. So that's kind of what I try and steer my daughter towards now, more than tinsel and glitz and glamour.
Yeah, I think that's a huge lesson with children. My son, he's 18 in February. My daughter's nearly 14, that's a thing then. And they're two completely different times in their life. But my son, because he's had everything that he's ever wanted, he's been skiing, he's been to Disneyland in Florida multiple times. He feels as though these things should be, you know, given to him all the time. He asked me yesterday, he said, "How much money am I getting for Christmas?" So I told him, and he was like, "Oh, is that it?" And I was like, "Well, you're nearly 18 now, son. This is a huge moment for you in life where you start to uncover who you are as a man." And he doesn't want to listen to me because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and he just sees me as, "Oh, I wouldn't want to listen to him. He's made a lot of mistakes, and these are important times. So that the child that he was isn't the man that he's going to become, and it's time for him to start standing on his own 2 feet." And he doesn't like it, but such is life. We've got to get on with
It's
it.
it's coming. It comes to every single one of the big things at the minute. My granddad, he's 93. Like bionic man. Um, Unbelievable. I don't know. I honestly don't know how he's still alive. It's unbelievable. But I was ruminating on it the other day. This I say this, it's probably going to be his last Christmas, but I've said that the last 2 years, to be fair. So it might not be his last Christmas. But it's when something's long and drawn out like that, it kind of makes death a really harsh reality that it's going to come to all of us, whether it be sudden, whether it be long drawn out. Everybody's going to end up in that hole. And it's the same, working back, and this is related back to what you mentioned, that sort of marching on of time. You're just going to have to fucking like it because it's not going to stop for you. So you either get on board and go with it, or you let it walk all over you and you end up starting late. Me personally, I know I've been, especially this last probably 4 years, has been I've almost stopped the world I want to get off moment up until this year. And I think it's that sort of, nothing sort of stopped. Everything carried on. It was just me that sort of removed myself from the world and worked on myself and stopped with the alcohol, stopped with the smoking, caffeine, all that, all the stuff that was causing sort of issues and problems, whether it be overtly or inadvertently. And then when I sort of try and rejoin the world, it's all different, and I don't want to rejoin it anymore. I kind of want to do my own thing still. And when you were saying about having these conversations, and I've said it multiple times, it is probably a vanity project gone wrong in terms of the fact that I'm kind of doing it for me because I get to speak to really interesting, amazing people like yourself and the other guests that I've had on. And like we were talking just off camera about reading and as I get older, reading books and gaining knowledge and gaining intellect and gaining insight into, you know, when I was younger, my dad always used to, if he ever listens to this, which I doubt he will because he's not a podcast kind of guy. But he always used to say, I've been your age, you haven't been mine. So it's always like, I know what it's like to be you. You don't know what it's like to be me. And now I'm probably 2 years older than what he was when I first heard that, it all kind of makes sense now. And it's I just want to sort of understand the world a little bit better, understand people a little bit better, and learn from other people's mistakes. That's what books and stories and people's experiences are there for. But if it helps people, if people listen to this podcast that are in the uh, part in their life or the time in life where you were or where I were at that point, and it helps them either set a little bit of a spark, and then in 2-3 years time they do something or whatever, then and it helps one person, it's 100% worth it. And at the same time I get to speak to awesome people as well. So going back to your story, and I know you've mentioned, you were in the depths of addiction. How do you make, I know it's a big question, but starting from where you started and then realizing you had a problem and getting out, or making that change, making that transition, where did you start with? How did you get into it? How did you fall into it?
How did I fall into addiction?
Mm.
It's a few things. I believe when we describe addiction, right, there's a lot of people who say it's a disease. There's a lot of people who say it's a response. For me, it's a very multifaceted organism, if you'd like. I'm a huge believer that addiction itself is a trauma response. Now, when I say addiction is a trauma response, there's a difference between moderated usage of drugs and addiction. And that's where people don't understand the separation. Because people say, well, I didn't experience trauma before I started using drugs. Yeah, but you weren't addicted then. There's a difference. You might use on a Friday, you might use on a Saturday, and then go all week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks before you go out with the lads or with your girlfriends, whatever. There's a
Yeah.
huge difference between moderated usage and addiction. And for me, I believe you don't just inherently get a disease. It doesn't just happen. For me personally, and I can only talk from person. Well, no, I can't. I've spoke to probably best part of 300 plus people on addiction, and I believe it's a trauma response. For me, there was a lot of violence involved when I was a child towards me and towards me from parents. I grew up a very insecure child who didn't really know how to handle emotion. Um, I was taught to lie at a very young age. My mum would interrogate me every time that I seen my dad when I was a kid for 2 or 3 hours. And I learned to lie to get out of being interrogated. So that was a coping mechanism that I learned when I was a child. I learned to make things up, again, lie, but make things up about me that weren't true to feel accepted by groups of people. And then I was introduced to cocaine at 17. And then from that moment, it was something that just evolved over time. And there was things like, say, the violence and the abuse that happened to me when I was a child. I never dealt with it. So when I was early 20s, early 30s, memories had come back. And one thing I'd learned to do is use drugs to numb pain to get me out of my reality. So I started using more and more. And when I got to, I think it was 35, something like that, I got divorced, lost my house. And my grandparents passed away in 2019, 2021, I think it was. Obviously, we were in a pandemic at the time, and I was on my own, so I was using cocaine and sleeping tablets every single day. There was no stopping. I'd wake up, I'd start drinking and taking drugs instantly, and there was no such thing as night or day for me. It was all just rolled into one big thing. Environment played a huge part. Friends played a huge part. People say, "Oh, since I've come out of addiction, I've realized they're not my friends." Well, I think that's a very spiteful thing to say, because these people have been in your life when you've had some of your most difficult moments. Granted, they haven't given us the help that we believe that we should have had at that time, based on our own opinion of where we are now. But to say these people aren't our friends is a bit, it's
It's too easy.
yeah,
It's that sort of, like you mentioned right at the beginning, in terms of perception. Your perception of reality is, they are your friends. It's just they didn't behave how you perceived them that they should have behaved. It's and I've always really, I've took a bit of a bugbear to that in terms of, don't get me wrong, I've given for what would it be now 5 years. 5 years I haven't drank a drop of alcohol, and none of my I mean, a couple of them have changed, but that's for different circumstances. But all the friends that say I used to go on hockey tours with, that used to see me get absolutely blotted on a Friday and a Saturday night, haven't changed. They don't judge. There's no pressure. There's no sort of, come on, have one, just that it's just accepted. I'm the sort of designated cook and driver wherever we go now, and it's it's not necessarily the fact that they're not your friends. It's it's changing that perception. Perception is such a powerful thing when it comes to it.
Yeah.
It's understanding that they're, I do it now. When somebody pisses you off or cuts you up or whatever on the motorway or on a roundabout, and it's like, well, yeah, they've got a life as well, and they might have just sped away from an argument with their missus, and they might have not just not been thinking and accidentally cut you up. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they've also got shit going on, and you just need to chill out a little bit. But it's the same. Yeah, it's the same with people that talk about. I had one of my friends, Erica. She talks about containers quite a lot when it comes to stuff like psychedelic therapy and things. It's all about containers and where you take them and what environment and with whom. And that's not on them. That's not on your environment. That's on yourself. You've chosen to put yourself into that position. You've chosen to be around the people that can't help you. Don't blame everybody else. Blame you. Take the blame. Own it. In a sense.
100%. 100% for me. You know, when it comes, I've heard people say loads of times, yeah, they weren't really your friends. That's bollocks, because at the end of the day, I was doing the same things as what they were doing. So does that mean, I wasn't their friend? No. But at the end of the day, when you talk about perception, I've changed my life. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to change theirs. I think that's quite a hypocritical thing to do, is say that, oh, because, I've changed my whole life round and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, therefore we can't be friends unless you follow my lead. No. I love all my friends the same way I did when I stopped hanging around, knocking about with them just over 12 months ago. When it comes to the drugs and alcohol, I can't be around them. I've been around them when they've been drinking. I was around narcotics in the summer. Did I take it? No. I'm not one of these people, and I don't mean this in a negative way because everybody's different. My identity now, I don't even identify as somebody who was an addict. I don't say that word, because for me it's an identity statement. I am an addict. No, I'm a human being. That's what I am. By identifying with the terminology of addict, I surround myself in this cage of entrapment. It's a limiting belief system.
Yeah, it's that victim, the sort of victim mentality that people can't break out of. And now it makes sense in terms of when you were talking at the beginning about sort of language and how important it is, and how it does change your mindset. I see it quite often, and even now, I've gone inward over the past 5 years and kind of figured out myself and cultivated a really healthy, finally, took a fucking while, but a really healthy inner dialogue with myself. And even though I hold myself to stupidly high standards quite a lot of the time, and I always think, oh, that's not good enough, and this isn't good enough, and you didn't do as well as you could do there. I've probably done better than 98% of people. It's just from my personal standards, it's not good, but I kind of do still cut myself some slack. But it's the same when it came to, and I wouldn't necessarily say I was addicted, or an addict, or an even alcoholic at that point. But 2-3 cans of an evening, wasn't drunk, wasn't pissed, but every evening after work, it's like, not only is it a financial burden, it's then a health burden. And I know because of the way I've cultivated that inner dialogue, I am all or nothing. Always have been. Always. You know, if I go out on a night out, I'm out. And I mean, I'm out. Like, and it might be 2-3 days before I come home. Um, and so I know for a fact I can't wean myself off. I can't cut down because if I open a bottle of red wine and I have one glass, that turns into 2 bottles very fucking easily and very fucking quick. So it's like, right, well, if I am all or nothing and I know I'm all or nothing, then it's got to be nothing. And that's what I've sort of stuck to. That's with caffeine, with nicotine, with alcohol, with cocaine and stuff. It's like, you know, I've been around it relatively recently and not a chance. There's no motivation to do it at all anymore, which is making that decision constantly again and again and again. And this is probably one of my biggest lessons to people that have a problem or have an issue. I always talk about decisions. Decisions are the biggest thing. People talk about manifestation, they talk about, you know, addiction, they talk about recovery. It all comes down to decisions. And you might have to make the same decision again 10 times an hour for the next 4 weeks just to beat your addiction. And then you might get to 3 weeks and 6 days, make the wrong decision right at the end, and guess what? It starts all over again. But it's just getting to the point where them decisions become further and further and further apart, and then you stop forgetting about it. I mean, like 5 years, and I was walking out of the studio the other day, and for some reason, I've got a drinks cabinet in the corner, and it's only because my uncle bought it me. And there's nothing in it. I think there's paper in it, to be honest. And I was walking out, and I got an urge because I used to like a glass of whiskey, and I got an urge walking out, and salivated, and thought, "Holy shit, where did that come from?" And it's good to just sort of recognize it and make the decision. Yeah, but I don't want it. It's just funny how it sort of comes about. But that language and understanding yourself and the way you are makes a massive, massive difference. Or it has done to me anyway.
It's huge, and as people, we distort, we generalize, we delete, we nominalize our language. There's things that you said there that it can cause a slight confusion in the brain. Kind of cut myself some slack. Well, you either do or you don't. You know?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I don't, to be honest.
I know you don't, because what I kind of cut myself some slack is a generalization. It's a generalized statement that doesn't really have any intent behind it. Therefore, it means the opposite.
Mm.
And it's I do it a lot. I'll listen to this podcast and I'll go, you generalized there, you deleted there, you done this, because that's, as human beings, that's what we do. We cut bits out of stories. I'll tell my story 10 times and I'll tell 10 different stories.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because we use different words in different parts of the process. So for me, you know, I had a conversation with my missus 2 weeks ago. I had a bit of a moment with my mentor a couple of weeks ago. So my missus gave up drinking with me. She enjoyed a glass of wine. We went out last week, or Saturday just gone. We went to Liverpool. We had some food. We had a couple of beers. And I thought to myself, all right, let's put yourself to the sword. Let's see what happens. And by 10 o'clock at night, we were home with kebabs, you know, sat on the kitchen worktop, eating food, talking about the year that we've had. That for me is a huge statement, because that was 12 months ago, 18 months ago. I'd have been out for 2 or 3 days. And the language that you use there, I used to use it all the time. I can't do it. If I'm doing it, I'll 3 liters of rum, you know, 7 bags of cocaine, shadow boxing in the kitchen at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, but the beauty is we grow, we become different, our identity improves. And you mentioned there, you know, you have to have the same internal dialogue with yourself. And have you heard of something called the golden spiral or the golden circle?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So again, my mentor, he taught it to me in January this year. And it was all around values, beliefs, behaviors, skills, and environment. And what I've noticed is over this year, I've had the same conversation probably Again, that's a generalized statement. I've had conversations around the same narrative probably 100, 200 times, maybe more. But every single time I've had that conversation, I've done it from an elevated stance. I've elevated this conversation we're having now. I've done it before, but this time I'm doing it with more knowledge, more wisdom. My identity's grown. My beliefs are more powerful. You know, me as a person, I'm improving. And I had a beer on Saturday. Now, I chose to do that because it was a lovely moment with my wife. We went out. My fiance. We enjoyed our evening. We came home. We had some food. No problem. And the power there is the ability for me to say no. For me personally, for the ability to go, right, I'm going home now. I'm not that same person that I was, you know. But what I also realized was that, yeah, I'm so much better off without alcohol because it was fucking boring. You know what I mean? It was just an environment. I was in Liverpool. Then we went back, got the train back to Chester. I think we had one drink in Chester, and I said, "Come on, we'll get a taxi home." This isn't my place. I don't fit in.
And it's strange that it's such a strange. I only say that, and I only interrupt you there, Lee, because obviously, with my hockey team, we've just had like Christmas dues, and one thing I haven't noticed feeling uncomfortable around people while they're drinking and while they're getting hammered and having fun and whatnot. It tends to be towards the sort of 10 p.m., 11 p.m. time where it's like I'm feeling like a square peg in a round hole now. I felt okay before, and now I'm just feeling like I don't fit because everybody's getting more and more drunk, and I'm sort of sat there, and it's now becoming a bit. The sort of contrast is becoming more apparent.
Yeah.
And it just, both nights that I went out on, it just got to the point where it's like, right, I'm done. I can't, I don't feel comfortable here anymore. I need to sort of be gone. And it's very strange to sort of find out that that's not your scene anymore.
Yeah, and exactly that, mate. Excuse me, exactly that. It was. Don't get me wrong. I've seen a couple of. Seen a friend of mine who I haven't seen for the majority of this year. Who's quite poorly. He was out. He was having a beer, so I spent an hour or a couple of hours with him. And that was cool. You know, I enjoyed it, but it came to the point where I was just like this. I'm glad I've came out because it's made me realize even more that the work that I've done this year is really ingrained in me as a person.
Yeah.
You know, it's the work I've done around who I am and where I want to be in the future is solidified. It's there, and the work I'm doing and have done is something that I want to keep doing. You know, alcohol was a huge part of my life. Drugs were a huge part of my life. They're not no more, and they never will be again. You know, but it's different because when I first stopped drinking and taking drugs in, let's call it January, February this year, I said, I will never drink and take drugs again. And then I've had a beer on the weekend. But it was with my fiance. It was a lovely moment. It wasn't nuclear, you know, it wasn't chaos. It was a good day. But again, I spoke to my mentor about it and I said, what's your opinion on this? And we had a good conversation around it. And he said the power is in the ability to know when to say yes or no. That's where the power is.
Yeah.
So I went out, had a couple of beers, came home. There was nothing, you know, that you'll get the recovery world can be quite anal. You've relapsed, you've done this. And that's not, I don't associate with any of that. I associate with me and who I am. And I'm comfortable where I am and I'm happy. You know, a relapse, if I'm a couple of beers, I don't know, I was a little bit tipsy coming home. People want to say that's a relapse, that's fine. But for me, it means fuck all.
No, and I think that sort of judgment, it doesn't help anybody. And everybody's so quick to fucking judge everybody else in terms of their life. And, you know, I do it. I do it quite often, and I'll be honest with the fact that I judge it. But then I catch myself and I think, don't be a dickhead. You know better than that. Why are you judging? And I think Ted Lasso, one of my favorite programs of all time. I love Ted Lasso. It's probably one of the best pieces of TV ever written. And there's a a quote in it where he says, "I hope all of us or none of us are judged by what we do in our weakest moments." And that if that mantra could be taken up by every single person, the world would be a considerably better place. Straight off the bat. What I know you mentioned it, and I know it's kind of going back a little bit into what you just mentioned, but how do you go from, to me now, what you come across as and what I sort of see you as and what I viewed you as on your podcast is somebody that's comfortable, confident, and happy with their own skin, within their own skin. How do you go from somebody that was an insecure child, like you said, that transformation into somebody that sort of presents as very comfortable, self-assured, and confident?
I think for me, purpose has been a huge part of my journey in the last 12 months. You know, and where people say a lot, my purpose is to help other people. Is it? Probably not, the more you delve deep into it. Helping people is a result of purpose, but it's never really the purpose itself, you know?
Thank
Purpose
you.
is
You've put that so good. Like, sorry to interrupt, Lee, but what's really been bugging me is this altruistic sort of giving for giving's sake, and oh, look at me,
yeah,
look how amazing I am because I'm
yeah.
helping this person. It's been pissing me off to high heaven. So
But yeah,
you've put it really, really well there.
for me, purpose is an internal process. It's something that you explore to find who you are as a person.
Mm.
And then if we internalize that, the external becomes a more beautiful place. People are provided with help. And again, through meeting my mentor, I'll say it like this. I've always knew I was destined for something great, but I didn't know what the fuck it was. I've
Yeah.
always had this feeling inside me that something powerful is there, but I didn't know what it was. And then when I met John, my mentor, he's a psychologist, neurolinguistics wizard, and like just all around the cleverest man I've ever met. But what we did have is commonality throughout our whole life. For the majority of our lives, a lot of similarities in the way he was brought up, the way I was brought up, the things that we enjoy. And then we use something called the neurological levels of change in NLP, the iceberg model. And at the bottom, you have purpose, then you have identity, values, beliefs, skills, behaviors, environment. And what you've got to do is you have to visualize where you want to be and then sort of write down in each one of them who you are and what you want to become. Because identity is built, it's designed. You know, we design purpose from the ground up. We don't find it, we design it. Like manifestation, right? These are the core fundamentals of what manifestation is. If you can create the right values, behaviors, beliefs, skills, they show up in environment. And that's what I've done and I'm only 12 months into this. I'm only just scratching the surface, you know? There's so much more. And we've spoke about the Fibonacci sequence of numbers to create momentum. And it's like, this is fucking mind blowing stuff.
It's,
But
you
what
know
it's
what,
done,
it's really, it's like, I'm not going to give the game away, but where I think you're going to get to is exactly what I've kind of discovered relatively recently, or I've been able to conceptualize relatively recently. I've probably always known it, but I've not been able to sort of figure out what it was that I actually knew it was. Because obviously I've done the reading of Rhonda Byrne, The Secret and The Power, and Manifestation, and then Deepak Chopra with Synchro Destiny, and it kind of all does make sense, but it's almost like what's happened is all these authors and all these gurus have tipped out their own pieces of jigsaw onto a fucking tabletop, and now you've got to try and sort out which fucking piece belongs to which jigsaw to make the picture. And then there's a few pieces missing that they've kind of kept back them for themselves for book number 2 and book number 3 and book number 4. And it's that sort of element where I see it all the time, you know, 20, well, you see it now more than ever. It's like 2026 is going to be my year. Got my mood board. I'm going to manifest this. I'm going to manifest that. Like, no, you fucking not. Not with that, and not with that
yeah,
attitude. It's not going to work.
I said it in 2018. I said next year will be my year. It was the worst year I've ever had. Or one of the worst years I've ever had. It was fucking shit. I ended up getting divorced. My nana and granddad both died, and it was like, yeah, that wasn't,
It's like as soon as the
yeah.
universe hears you say it, it's like, oh, are you? You're really going to have the best year? No, you're fucking not.
But what it was the start of something for me to go,
Mm,
okay, I'll fucking show you that, and I'm glad that you say the universe. I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person.
hmm
And I believe that, well, there is a huge difference. And the way I was always trying to figure out what is spirituality. And my mentor, we spoke about it for a while, and he said, it's living life at identity at your core, who you're truly supposed to be. And he was like, if you think of it this way, you have an A3 piece of paper and you cut off a little bit from the corner, and that's you.
mm,
That's who Lee is as a person. And you fit in to the corner. You'll always fit into that corner. But what you have to do is find out how you fit into that corner, why you fit into that corner. And the exploration of life is how you create the life itself. If we just stroll through life and think everything's hunky dory, one day the universe will go, fuck you. Have a bit of that,
yeah.
and it will, and it happened to me. It's happened to me multiple times this year. My beliefs have been smashed to pieces probably 7 or 8 times where I'm like, fucking hell, I was so wrong. That is, in a good way, but it was like, I always thought I can never drink again. But I proved
Mm,
myself wrong.
yeah.
I proved myself wrong that I had a couple of beers with my missus, went home, and everything was brilliant. Now, that's not me saying I'm going to drink again, but if I want to, the opportunity is there, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I found power in being able to prove to myself that, not everything is nuclear, not everything is chaos. The emotional regulation, the ability to control myself, I've just become a better person.
Mm,
And that is the beauty around values, beliefs, behaviors, skills, identity, who Lee is, because I told myself for so long that I'm going to be destructive, and now I'm not. That there's beauty in that.
do you think I'd like to, yeah, I'm not going to give my answer away, but do you think there's a lot of people that don't know who they are?
100%.
Mm,
100%. I didn't know who I was. I've got 2 kids. I've always said that I'm a good father. Looking back, there's so many different parts of being a parent that I should have improved on.
mm,
But I was in this. I'm from North Wales. I live in a small town where it's a working class environment where you work all week and get pissed on the weekend.
yep.
Did I know who I was? Fuck no. I tell you. So my mentor asked me beginning of this year, what's your top 10 values? I was like, I don't fucking know. What do I value? But then I've done the work on myself, and now I know what my values are. You know, what are my 3 most powerful belief systems? When I asked, I don't know. Now I understand what my beliefs are and where they're limited.
Mm,
What are my skills? What are you good at, Lee? Uh, I don't know. I'm good at playing pool in a pub, But what I've come to realize is that stuff when I was a teenager. I'm good at writing poetry.
mm,
I'm good at being able to communicate, even though communication is something that I was shit at for most of my life. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? I'm good at learning. I'm good at being able to touch the soul of another human being. I didn't know any of these things in January. But even that is a general statement, right?
Yeah.
Because there is parts and tools of it that I did know. As human beings, we are so lost, and I'm talking as a collective.
Yeah. Yeah.
The everyday man. Well, you know this just as well as I do, mate. Men are killing themselves at a higher rate now than ever before. Suicide in women is becoming huge. It's every year it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Purpose is such a huge thing that human beings don't know. What is your purpose? Well, just to be a good person and be a good parent. Generalized statement. We
Mm,
don't know what that statement involves. What does being a good person look like to you? And I'll guarantee you, 90% of I'll call them working day, middle class, lower class, middle class, upper class, everyone. We couldn't answer that. As a generalized statement, we couldn't answer that. If you'd have asked me that 12 months ago, I'd have laughed at you. But it takes a lifetime to learn as well. This isn't something that you learn overnight. I've learned stuff in these 12 months. This is a baseline for where I need to, or no, I don't need to get there, for where I want to get to. It's a baseline.
It's weird that when I first started, so I came out of a divorce that wasn't particularly, came out of a marriage and a divorce that wasn't particularly healthy, or it wasn't healthy in the slightest. And I started my therapeutic journey. So I started first with CBT, which, I know it works for people. I fucking hated it.
Me too.
And I was just speaking to one of my friends who's coming on the podcast in 2026, Nico. He's a hypnotherapist, like world renowned, really, really good. And I was just speaking to him, and I was saying, like, I'd be in CBT sessions and I'd be like at a really vulnerable point, and we're kind of just on the verge of a breakthrough. It'd be like, right, that's time. I'd be like, hang on a fucking minute. You're going to cast me out into the shadows, and I feel like a fucking turtle without a shell. So CBT didn't work. And then I started EMDR, which was amazing. Like, I forgive the pun for those that know what that is, but it was eye-opening to the point of like, holy shit, this stuff works. Yeah. And then I kind of made a foray back to CBT, and then started life coaching, and then through life coaching went on to do psychedelic therapy. And that sort of, when I first started CBT, I thought, 6 months, I'll be done. 6 months, I'll be fixed. I'll be, back to my usual self, and I'll be okay again, and I can just move on with my life. And, it's almost like take a pill, take a course of antibiotics, and I'm done. And then that's it, I'm on. And then we're fucking 8 years down the line, and I'm like, oh, this is only just the beginning. And it's that sort of evolution. And this is a problem that I see. I get so frustrated. I've just this episode will come out before the other episode that I'm mentioning comes out, but it's a lady called Kezia Noble. She's a political commentator, really interesting lady. And I was talking about politics with her, which I think I've become more and more involved, or more and more invested in this past year, just based on the fact that the biggest thing and the biggest problem that I see is accountability. And that's more so in politics as well as societies, is understanding I've learned to be that person. I am very opinionated. I am very stubborn. I am very pig-headed, just exactly like my daughter is with me. But I've kind of learned to go, I have learned to kind of take a step back and go, I was wrong there. I've got a different opinion, or I've learned something new. I've understood something differently. My opinion has now changed. And that happens a lot within politics, or it has happened a lot within politics, where I've seen politicians, I voted for Nigel Farage in 2016. I don't mind saying that. I voted for him at the time. And I think now, looking at it, I think he's probably the best, in my opinion. He's probably the best of a bad bunch of four that you've got the opportunity of. But I still don't think he's the answer to the problem. I think the answer to the problem is accountability. And when it comes to society and people and friends that you know and family, I think the lack of that causes so much ill feeling, resentment, negativity. One of my therapists always said, it's funny how people in therapy are in therapy because of people that actually need to be in therapy.
I mean, when we're talking politics, mate, you're talking to the wrong person, because I think they're all fucking idiots.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly, but ultimately, I'd rather have an idiot that's not the biggest fucking idiot on the podium than anybody else.
I was watching. I think that they were in the House of Parliament the other day, and I was just listening to them having this conversation around migration, and they're all laughing and joking and pointing fingers at each other, and I just thought this is like it's like being in school,
Yeah. Oh, so
you know,
much.
these people are on, I don't know, £250,000 a year, whatever they get paid, maybe more, and they're all laughing and calling each other names. And I just thought, you put 20 members of the public inside there for the day and just allow us to listen to these absolute fucking idiots. And these people are in charge of how our money's spent, the rules and legislations that get put in place. And I just think it's mental. Like
It is
it
baffling.
literally is fucking mental. It's mental.
It's like this thing with I mentioned it before, like on a previous episode, but this thing about tax the rich and tax wealth and tax assets and this, I seem to be the only one in my social circle that's like, well, hang on a minute. I don't think the solution is giving them more fucking money to waste. I think the solution is, what have you done with the fucking money that we've give you already? Like, and nobody seems to be saying it at all. Nobody. And it's almost like pissing good money after bad. And Einstein's definition of insanity of, like, you know, doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of, well, yeah, oh, let's give them, you know, hundreds of billions of pounds more. Where do you think that's going to go? Yeah, to all the fucking friends in the back pockets. Like it's done with the fucking 1.3 trillion that's just been collected this year. And then, you know, you talk about this sort of, you mentioned the migration thing again, and I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but it always baffles me, you know, when people talk about stop the boats and use the Royal Navy and this, that, the other. Right. These people that get on a boat in France know they've got basically a 50-50 chance of dying or getting here. If that isn't a big enough of a deterrent, what the fuck do you think you're going to do to deter them trying? Death or not? That you haven't got a fucking hope in hell. You've got no hope in hell. If death doesn't put them off, then you have no piece of policy, legislation, or fucking soapbox shouting is going to ever change that. So yeah, no, it is insane. And I think it comes from people that have been through shit and been through that sort of therapeutic process, whether it in any stretch, whether it be in a professional sense or whether it be in a personal sense, that look upon this sort of situation and think and just end up pulling their hair out or pulling the beard out in my case, because it is absolutely baffling to the point where if you don't remove yourself, you could end up going insane.
Excuse me. When I came out, I'd say the word came out of addiction. It's like walking out of a house. When I stopped using, I had to go to what's it called now? Rehab centre in the Priory.
All right, yeah.
And I walked in, poured my heart out to this guy, one of the best psychologists in Europe, apparently. He wrote my story down on a farty little piece of scrumpled up paper. And he said to me, come back and we'll do some CBT therapy. So anyway, I started it, and I'll be honest, I thought it was shite.
Yeah.
All it was sort of talking about stuff that had happened to me and ruminating over the trauma. And I didn't enjoy it at all. So I'd done a bit of EMDR and a bit of therapy with a lady who I know, and that helped me a hell of a lot more. But I'll be honest, people say NLP is a pseudoscience. My mentor and very, very good friend, I see him like he's like a father figure to me now. Lives in South Africa. I'm hoping to go over next year and meet him. The work me and him have done together has been more powerful for me than anything else I have ever done. But it's all, and I mean, he isn't counsellors, for instance. I've got nothing against counsellors, but they're very opinionated. This is what's wrong with you because of X, Y, and Z. Okay. You don't know that. You're mind reading.
Yeah.
That's what in NLP it's called, mind reading, where or they don't like me because of X, Y, and Z, you know. So my mentor didn't ever really tell me what to do. All he did was ask me questions, but he asked me questions in a very powerful way that it was just unlocking doors in my mind. Mate, probably I cried more in the first 6 months of this year than I probably have in the last 10 years.
It's
But it
funny
was all,
when you mention that unlocking the doors, it's that it's working, and anybody that's listening that's going through sort of therapy at the minute, if you haven't experienced this, stick with it. It will come. Is you'll be 30, 40 minutes into an hour session and you'll think it's going nowhere and you think it's all bullshit. And then you'll say something and the penny will drop in your own mind and you'll go, oh shit, that's why I think that way. And that's why I do that behavior. And I didn't realize that that was the link. And then all the dominoes sort of start to fall then. But it's funny how you mentioned it's just asking questions and that's how it happens.
Yeah. So we had a moment, was it last weekend or the weekend before, where I spoke to you about the Bible that I'm writing, that I'm creating at the moment. And it was on a Sunday, I think. And I thought, do I paint the kitchen today or do I carry on doing the work that I'm doing? I thought, you know what? I'm going to paint the kitchen. So in between painting the kitchen, I was having conversations on WhatsApp, voice notes. That day, I probably learned more in that day than I had in the last couple of weeks. Because we were talking about, you've seen the clip on the Matrix where Neo goes to see the Oracle and talks to the young Buddhist guy about there is no spoon. And I just heard it on YouTube, there is no spoon, and it started playing on my mind. So we spoke about that clip from the Matrix for the afternoon and how, you know, there is no spoon. It's our perception that creates the solidification of the spoon.
Yeah.
You know, it's our perception of reality that, you know, I could hear a song and that song takes me back to a moment. It's not the song itself, it's my perception of the song, right? So that's what, you know, and it just fucking
nobody
blew my
else is in
mind.
that moment with you, they.
Exactly. And so there is no spoon, right? And it was that afternoon I was sat there like, fucking hell. Like, even myself telling myself all year, I can never drink or use drugs again. And I'll add drugs into that conversation. That's not me saying I'm going to go and use drugs again. That's the quote that I said was a massively limiting belief, because in that moment, I am giving myself a how can I put it? Like a cemented wall or statement around myself that I can only be happy if I do X, Y, and Z. You know, and that's not true. And we do that. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. And these things aren't true. We have to knock those walls down and then allow ourselves the choice. You know, that's where the power of who we are as people is. And
yeah, I think you bang on like that sort of. It's strange. Like, so this year, and I say like I've been on a therapeutic journey for 7 years, 8 years, and this year more so than anything has been like a transformational year in more sense than one, whether it be psychologically or physiologically. When was it? When did I start? So let's say April. I think April, just after my birthday. So just after April, I kind of made the decision that something needed to change. I'd been in sort of a rut for 18 months to 2 years, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. What I wanted to. I'd been in construction for 17 years. And although I still like it, it wasn't fulfilling. I was waking up every morning thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to go to work today and I've got this to do and I've got that to do and I don't really want to go and I can't wait to finish. So it got to the point where it was like trying to figure out, like we've discussed, purpose. What am I here for? I feel like I've got a touch of destiny. I've died nearly 3 times, therefore I kind of feel like, yeah, the universe is saving me for fucking something. What is it? What's the thing? And I've told the story before. I went out for a meal with my partner and I ended up speaking to the waiter for about 2 hours. It was a Muslim waiter, and he was speaking about Islam, and I was speaking about Christianity, and we were learning about each other's religion. And it was only because I grew up Catholic that I know a fair bit about it, and done the deep dives as well. And I came out. To be fair, my missus was all right. She was involved. She wasn't just like she was sat in the corner colouring on the kids menu. But I came out of that date day, and we were walking to the car, and I said that just lit a fire. There was something. It wasn't anything profound. It was like I really fucking enjoyed that. Like, it's just a really good conversation, and I didn't come away converted to Islam, and he didn't go back to work converted to Christianity. It was just a meeting of two different worlds and different thought processes, and a really good discussion. And lo and behold, since that point, certain things started dropping into my vision and my world, and I had a psychedelic therapy session. And the message that kept on coming through was I was becoming disillusioned. I tell you when it was exactly the time when people were saying Putin was going to push the big red button. And it was playing on my mind constantly. And then I kept on resigning to, well, if it happens, it fucking happens. There's nothing I can do about it. And it kept on ruminating in my head. And then I did this. I shouldn't have done it, but I did a psychedelic therapy session. And the message that kept coming through was put up or shut up. Stop being a bitch and do something about it, or shut up and just live your life. And I decided after that session to shut up. I thought, all right, well, okay, I'll stop thinking about it, and I'll go on with my sad little life and do whatever I need to do. And then the universe was like, no, you're not meant to do that. I asked you that question because you were meant to fucking put up, here's this, and here's this, and here's this, and here's this. And it led me to the world of podcasting and the world of having these conversations, and these, the conversations that I believe need to be had more and more and more and more. And nobody seems to have, I've got a project coming up. I'm not going to tell much about it because it might not come off yet, because it might be absolutely shit. But I've got a project coming up, and one of the things that came up in this project was an answer to a question it said something along the lines of, society starts failing when arguments take place over what is good and what is bad, rather than what is true and what is false. And it was really interesting at that point, because it kind of validated everything that I've gone through, in terms of, I don't want to be a part of a media machine that just purports this is good, this is bad, this is wrong, this is right. It's what is true and what is not true. And everything that I talk about, I believe to be true. Everything that I don't, that I condemn, I believe to be false. But like I've said before, I will alter my opinion if information is presented to me. And I think the biggest issue is when we talk about purpose, and when we're trying to find it, it's not sort of a tangible thing to hunt. It kind of came at me without me really knowing, and blindsided me and sucker punched me, and that's it. I'm sat in this chair talking to you. How did you?
Go on, sorry, mate.
How did you how did you find it? How did it come about for you? Is it similar?
I think I started about 3 years ago. I started going to like mental health groups, and it was like a men's mental health group. It was called Man to Man. It was really powerful stuff. And I started meeting people there that were really, they were all about reading and stoicism, or self-help. And I just thought, these are a good group of guys. And then I went away and done a little bit of my own work. And I just started chipping away at bits of myself from there. And then I said, I'm going to start a podcast. And then I started a podcast just over 12 months ago. But I felt like something was missing, and I'd still drink now and then, and then I wouldn't even call it a relapse, mate. I've just fucking carried on using it. Was just, and then that sort of got more and more and more. And then the podcast, I didn't bother with. It was just sat there doing nothing. And then I just remember saying, like, next year I'm going to study neuroscience, psychology, linguistics. I'm going to do all these things. And then I just started doing them. I just started doing these things, learning these things. And, I've invested probably damn near 15 grand now in stuff that I'm learning. And through that process, I've just found parts of me that were almost dormant, if you like. And I've just worked on them, like, honesty. I was a lying bastard for most of my life. Now I'm, religion probably better than me, but if you ask God for honesty, he won't give you honesty. He'll give you the opportunity to be honest. Right?
Yes, I love that you just said that. And like I said, I'm not overly religious, but I love that.
Yeah.
That if you are religious and you ask God for courage, do you think God just magically gives you courage, or do you think he presents you with opportunities that you can learn to be courageous? And vice versa. And even if you're not religious, if you think believe in Krishna or Allah, which in essence are the same being as God, or the universe, it's that if you're wishing for something or if you're hoping for something, then when a situation arises that gives you opportunity to prove that, take it with both hands. It's a gift.
Yeah, and that's what I've done, and I've been presented with opportunities. Okay, I value well-being. Well, show me. Show yourself. If I value well-being and health, well, drink and drugs, get them out the fucking window. And all these, it's purpose isn't built on a grand scale. It's built in micro moments. So, like, when we talk about the Fibonacci sequence of numbers, I think the sequence goes like 1, 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and then the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. But it starts with 1. Me and my mentor were talking about it. Me and John were talking about it the other day. 1, 1, 3, right? There's nothing huge in those numbers. But what they're doing, you're designing, you're creating momentum. Momentum builds identity. Identity builds purpose. Purpose builds belonging. Whatever you want to call it, and that can be described in multiple ways. You look at religion. Religion it teaches you spirituality and morality, how to be a good person. Well, and that's what I believe religion is. It's just some bloke thousands of years ago, and he was just teaching you how to be a decent person. Not lying, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. These are all, moral values, how to be a good person. And I think, people have this description, if you're not religious, you'll go to hell. Well, I'll just be a good person and I'll go where I'm going to end up. I'll end up where I'm going to end up. I haven't always been perfect. I've done some fucked up things. I've had some fucked up things done to me, but I'm trying. And that's all we can do as human beings is try. Try and be better, which in turn, you'll be better. And I know what John will be saying now. Like Yoda says, there is no try, there is only do. But I am being a better person. I am a fucking better person. Let's get rid of the shite language. I am a better person. And every day I'm learning something new that is helping me become what I want to be. Becoming a better father, a better partner, better person, a better friend, somebody who wants to help other people and show them that we don't have to live in this pain and suffering for the rest of our lives.
I think it's really difficult. I see it now. I mean, my biggest dream, so what I want, and this is what I foresee in the next 5 years for me, I want my own slice of land. I want my own animals. I want my own veggies. I want my own, I completely off grid. And that element of purpose, of this is what you you need to survive. You don't need supermarkets. You don't need Tesco's or Marks and Spencer's. Other supermarkets are available. You don't need the rat race. You don't need the high flying job that pays you $100,000 a year. You just need this. It was I think it was my first psychedelic session, and it was that. If you've ever done it and you're in the afterglow and you sat down and you're thinking, holy shit, like what? I've just kind of understood the secrets of the universe and now I can't remember them. But one thing that stuck with me was in terms of water, it was the water. So the world, the universe has created this system where fresh, clean drinking water is delivered to you exactly wherever you are on the planet, whenever you want, like, and you're in the right. If it rains, that is fresh, clean drinking water delivered directly to you, whether you're at the top of a mountain or in the middle of a city. But yet, for some reason, humans have decided to put it in reservoirs, fill it with fucking chemicals, and charge you for the privilege. And you try and reconcile that in your brain, and it doesn't. I just can't reconcile it. It doesn't work anymore. So then I started looking at everything else, and then I started looking at food, and I've been trying recently to get a vegan activist on the podcast, just based on the fact that I don't disagree fundamentally with what they stand for. But it goes back to what we said right at the beginning in terms of the disappearance of rituals and the ritualistic element of certain things within society. Rites of passage when it comes to things like alcohol, even sort of drugs to an extent. But then with our food, it used to be, and you still see it now. I watch, what's his name? Not Mike, Bruce Parry, Amazon. Where he goes to all these Amazonian tribes and lives with them for a time. And when they hunt, say, a tapir in the Amazon jungle and they kill it, it's a massive, full village. Everybody comes out, everybody celebrates, everybody gives thanks to the animal because obviously it's not. And it's that, the fact that we've lost that kind of means that people I go into, like I have done this week, I'm going to the butcher's today, pick up some venison. Like, I didn't see that deer run through a field. I didn't shoot the fucking thing. I didn't cull it, kill it, butcher it. I didn't do any of that, but yet I'm reaping the benefits. I don't know whether any of that animal went to waste. I don't know whether it went through a bad life. But that disconnect from food and from what our true purpose is here on this planet causes that lack of I believe causes that lack of purpose, causes that disillusionment. And I think that's half the battle with spiraling suicide rates. I've been at that point. I've been to the point of as low as you could possibly go without committing to actually the act of doing. And the frightening thing is knowing the fact that there's a level beneath that where you actually go and try and do it. Is scary beyond belief. But it's almost that despair. And I know I always felt different when I went out into the woods walking the dog in the morning and I was sat in nature or in nature, and everything just lifted slightly. Everything just kind of didn't matter as much. And I think that's part of the battle.
Yeah.
No.
I couldn't think of nothing fucking worse.
Christmas is awesome for people like me and
you. Yeah. So like tribalism, right? You had the elders, you had the hunters, you had the people who make the clothes, you had the cooks, you had the children, you had this, everybody had purpose, right? Everybody had a purpose in tribes. Now, I'm guilty of this. Uber Eats, you don't even have to leave your fucking comfort of your own sofa to get a Subway or a McDonald's or, this and that. Meat is something, I'm a big meat person. I spend a couple of £100 in the butcher's every month. All goes in the freezer, and then I just pick it up whenever I want. I'm trying again. I'm trying to get back to that basic way of food. I'm a big lad. I'm 6'6". I'm 22 stone. I've always been a big unit of a lad, but over the last few years, I've gone up and down in weight, and I've been quite lazy at times, and then I'll be really busy for a bit. This year, I've focused very much on this. Next year, I want to get back to the physical aspect and bring them both up together. And food for me is huge. You know, when people say, "Oh, I'm struggling with depression," or "I've got low energy," and okay, do you go outside and what's your diet look like? Because if you're eating McDonald's 3 times a week and Chinese's and pizzas like I've done, you know, no wonder you're feeling like shit, because you've got all sorts of shit rolling around your body. And when I did try and kill myself 4 years ago, you know, the night I remember sat there and I ate. I'll estimate around about £1,000 worth of cocaine, and I had blood coming out my eyes and out my nose and out my ears, all sorts. And I hit the floor. I collapsed on the floor, and I thought, "This is it. I'm dead. I will never wake up again." And I did. I woke up 20 something hours later in a pool of blood, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is fortunate." And people say you've got to hit rock bottom, right, to change. Well, I hit rock bottom and carried on. I carried on drinking, carried on using. And I met my fiance that I'm engaged to now about 4 weeks later, and she showed me I'd always push love away, right? I know I've gone off on a tangent here from
It's
food.
all right. Don't worry.
I know I always push love away from my thought process was, if my parents could hurt me the way they did, nobody else is going to love me. And I'd always push love away. And for a good year and a half, mate, I wasn't, when it was good, but there was still drinking drugs involved. She'll tell you herself, she allowed it to happen just as much as I allowed it to happen. But in that 18 months, I'd always complained that I was depressed, that I had anxiety, that I was sad. And she'll tell me now, you know, there was times where I'd spend 3 days in bed. I wouldn't get out of bed for 3 days. And there'd be McDonald's, there'd be fucking Subways, there'd be Chinese's, there'd be pizza boxes. And then she'd say, "Well, no wonder you felt like shit. Like, you didn't have a proper meal for like sometimes 4 or 5 days at a time." I wouldn't drink any water. I'd just drink, you know, cans of pop, cans of Coke. And one of the biggest questions I ask people now is, if you're feeling shit, what are you eating? What are you putting in your body that is, you know, going to make you feel like shit? I love pizza, right? But I know if I ate pizza every day, 1, I'd be clinically obese, and 2, I'd be manically depressed.
It's that sort of fuel. I mean, water's been a massive thing for me probably the last 18 months. I never used to drink it. Never used to drink it. It was always pop. And, you know, if I'm getting fluid, regardless of what it is, well, I'm okay. I'm hydrated. And it's not the case. And like, I go through 6 bottles. I generally drink sparkling water. I just enjoy it a bit more. And I go through about 6 bottles of sparkling water in 3-4 days. So that's, you know, 12 liters within 3 or 4 days is gone. And I carry around this bottle everywhere I go. You know, I go on the walk with the dog and I can't go without my water bottle now, because I'm always thirsty. And I felt so much healthier. Obviously I changed my diet previous to that. I haven't had McDonald's for 4 years, 5 years. That was just after I found out what they did with the fries. Every fry that you get from McDonald's is at least 6 months old. At least.
Wow.
I never knew this. I don't know how true it is. However, it's from a reputable source. Because they're a difficult potato to grow and they're so big, they have to spray them with an extra strong pesticide. So when they harvest them, they have to put them into an airtight hanger, and leave them there for like about 6 months for this pesticide to basically go and degrade and wear away. And then that's when they can start using these potatoes. So every potato that you get, every fry, is at least 6 months old out of ground, supposedly. So when I found that out, right or wrong, true or false, and I believe it to be true, that's it. It was like, no more McDonald's.
Yeah.
But the game changer for me has been the water element. We are, what are we, like 70-odd% water?
Something 18, something like that.
It makes such a difference. I had Doran Binder on the podcast earlier this year, and he's a water sommelier. Really interesting dude. And he was talking about, obviously, the different TDSs and all the minerals and how the sort of water game as it stands, like things like smart water and electrolytes, all electrolytes is fucking salt and minerals. That's all it is. So when people say they need electrolytes, just put a spoonful of salt in water.
Yeah.
There you go. You've got your energy drink.
I've got probably a couple of kilos of Celtic salt in the cupboard.
Makes a big difference. If you've got a headache, discovered this the other day. If you've got a headache, just take a dab of salt. Yeah. There you go. It'll go quicker than any paracetamol will ever touch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt. But yeah, water is one of the biggest things for me. But the diet element and going on to the food is that sort of lack of connection, that lack of purpose. I think it's just how do you get it back in a society where, I'm looking now. I've decorated the microphone for Christmas, or my daughter's decorated the microphone for Christmas, where I've got a little bauble on the bottom. And I look at, and this is why Christmas is ruined for me, like I mentioned right at the beginning, is I look at that, and where my daughter sees that and thinks, oh, that's a pretty decoration, it's a nice bauble, blah, 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 blah. I look at that and think, that is somebody's job to make that piece of shit. Do you know what I mean, though? It's like, what kind of purpose, and this is not me being all high and mighty and sort of degrading people, but what kind of purpose is that for somebody? It's not a human purpose to make a little plastic dangly fucking ball that hangs off a tree. And I think that's the thing that I've struggled with.
For me, the one thing I've realized is, mate, some people are okay with it.
Yeah.
Some people are okay with living a life that they don't get a great deal of, I won't say satisfaction, but
fulfillment, maybe.
Fulfillment, expectation. There's guys that I grew up with, brilliant lads. You see them in the street, you have a conversation with them. How you doing? How's your mum? How's your dad? Blah, blah, blah. And they've been in the same job since they were 14, 15 years old. You know, and they're 40 plus years old now, and they work all day. They'll go to the pub 6 nights a week. And that's their job. That's their life. And some of them don't have children, and they're cool with it, and that's okay. That's okay for them. And again, it's expectation of what you want as in life, My fiance has this theory, if you'd like, that as human beings, we have past lives and future lives, and each life that we have, we learn a little bit more, and we learn a little bit more until the point where we've learned enough, where we get to elevate consciousness or go to the next level, or whatever that be, or heaven, if you'd like, if you want to call it heaven. And some people are in, a life where they have to only learn this much, and so some people are, hey, it could be true, could be not, it could be fucking nuts.
But, I've had a psychedelic experience that sort of rings true with what you've just explained, to be honest.
I mean, I've done DMT a couple of times. Seen some mad stuff in there. I've microdosed magic mushrooms for the best part of 6 or 7 months, where I was doing the Paul Stamets method. So I think it was 3 or 4 days on, 3 days off.
How did you find that affected you? Just out of interest, from somebody that's done it and been there, how did you find it helped you in day to day? Just out of interest.
For me, I was using the truffles. So I'd crush all the truffles down, and I was doing 1 gram a day, and there could be some of that, the power of suggestion or whatever you want to call it. There could be a little bit of that in there.
Placebo
But
effect to an extent.
yeah, I was clarity, I was focused, and I had good energy. I had a very positive 6 months, the beginning of this year. So there was no real negative. I'd probably say the first 6 months of this year was where the majority of my eureka moments were. So all in all, there's nothing really negative I can say. I don't know whether it was placebo or just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can only say my experiences were healthy and positive.
Yeah, I think that the way I've sort of explained it to certain friends is, for me, and this is where sort of the like you said, the placebo effect. It was almost like coming up for air. It was almost like this is what normal feels like. I'm not up, I'm not down, I'm not left or right. I'm kind of on track. I'm focused. I'm level. I'm not too high. I'm not too low. It's just, this must be what normal people feel like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that element of, it's like it was 0.02 grams, so it was nothing crazy. But it's that sort of breath of fresh air moment. And the Paul Stamets method, it was the exact same. And it does kind of have that. There was no negative impact in my life that I could sort of pinpoint. It was, if anything, it was all positive. And like you said, whether that's placebo or not, it fucking worked. So I'll stick with it. But yeah. So you mentioned your Bible. I want to touch on this because it's really interesting, and the reason why it's interesting is I've thought, and we've touched on it already in this podcast, I've thought about writing something for a long time, and it was always a fictional novel. I've always enjoyed, Stephen Fry does one. I can't remember for the life of me what it's called. It was one of the first books I read as an adult. I'm gonna have to find the title because I want to give it its due. And it was basically about going back in time and killing Adolf Hitler, making history. That's what it's called. So it was from 1996. It was really good. I was reading it in Africa when I was traveling over there. And if you've ever been to like backpacking and stuff, they have like book stops where you just drop off the book that you've read and pick up another book and take it to the next backpackers, wherever that is in the country. And I read this book, and because parts of the book were factual and it was non-fiction, and then there was parts of the book that were fictional, i.e. time travel. Obviously, that's not a fucking real thing. But it was going back to real dates, real times, real places with real people, which is why I kind of like the Assassin's Creed games, because they're historically accurate, but with a fictional storyline. Fucking love it. Brilliant. So I've always thought I wanted to write something along that genre. And I started it. I think I'm about 6-7 chapters in and kind of not lost interest, but other things took over. And then relatively recently, we touched on the self-help gravy train that everybody seems to be sort of jumping on. You've got Matthew McConaughey. I read his book, Green Lights. This is not a slight on Matthew McConaughey. I actually like the book, and I actually think it could help a lot of people. And then, you've got Robin Sharma, Deepak Chopra. These are all people that I've bought the books of and read, and some of them have helped. And Robin Sharma's Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is one of the best books I believe has ever been written. It's phenomenal. So good for mental health in that sense. But like I said before, in terms of tipping the jigsaw pieces on the board, and they kind of leave pieces out for book 2 and book 3, I kind of want to write something that from personal ground, not from the ivory tower when I've made it, like Deepak Chopra's multimillionaire, and he's talking about, if you do this, this, and this, and this, and synchro destiny, and you look for the synchronization within this coincidence, and you'll get to where you want to go. No, you motherfucker, you're already there. Like, don't tell me how to do it. You're already sat on your millions. Same as Matthew McConaughey, same as Tony Robbins. There's no real skin in the game for these people anymore. Same as Jay Shetty. And these are all people I respect. These are all people that I've read and admired. So that's what it's always been on my mind, is somebody that's in the trenches. Real life experience. Real life, like, you haven't made it, but this is what I'm fucking finding out along the way. Is that what this project is for you? Your Bible,
So basically, mate, what I've done is I've got 10 volumes with 10 chapters in each one. So it's around the power of 100. So you talk about the Fibonacci sequence and 100 being like this powerful number. And it's basically everything that I've learned over the last my whole life, leadership was something. I've been in leadership roles in my work since I was 22 years old. But what I found was, and a lot of people are the same, we're one person in work, one person outside of work, horses for courses type thing. And what I've done this year, I've instilled a lot of values from the Lee who performs well at work, and merge them with the Lee who, I'll say, underperforms at home. But it's all around how I believe from an everyday man, if you like, normal lad, what it's like to lead your own life, all around things we can do to improve on a regular basis, explanations of nervous systems, but in very loose, streetwise terminology. A lot of it is around internal questions. I am a big believer that we have all the resources we need as a person. Sometimes we just have to get out of our own way to allow ourselves to find the answers. A lot of the stuff that I've learned is nobody's told me to go and do these things. I've done them myself. John, the guy, my mentor, don't get me wrong, he'll teach me certain things when I'm ready to learn them. But he hasn't just gone, right, you need to learn neuroscience, you need to do psychology, you need to look all that. And I'd be like, oh, fucking hell. When the student's ready, the teacher will show its face. I'm a big, when we're ready to learn a certain thing, let's learn it. But what these sort of 10 volumes do is we start small, and then we sort of gradually get a bit more progressive. And there is bits on neuroscience and psychology and the nervous system, and but it's all based around questions. So neurolinguistics is the spine of the whole thing. So it's not telling people what to do, it's telling people why, or, what part of this, what's your answer to this sort of equation, if you like. And I've listened to Tony Robbins, and I've listened to Chris Williamson and Deepak Chopra and Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, I love Joe Rogan, but there isn't, and I learned this myself, there is no fucking silver bullet in the world.
Never. Not in a million years. And anybody that purports that there is talking utter bullshit.
When I searched for this silver bullet, because I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to do a degree. And what I've learned is I could have probably saved 15 grand. You know what I mean? I could have just done all this myself, and that's saying that somebody else has done it. I've done it. I could have done it a different way, but hey, I've done it now. Do you know what I mean? When we talk negative labels, we automatically assume that a positive label is something that's going to be good. I'm doing a master's degree in trauma-informed psychology. Sound. Do you know what I mean? Sound. I've studied neuroscience. Sound. Well, so what? The beauty is in unlocking parts of the most powerful thing that I've found is being able to unlock somebody's unconscious, if you like. I had, let's take, for example, I spoke to Tyson Fury's nutritionist a couple of weeks ago we were having dinner, and he said to me, everything that I've ever done in my life, and I feel like I've not accomplished anything. I feel like I'm worthless. He said, I've not done anything brilliant with my life. I said, have you got children? He said, yeah. I said, well, being a father is probably the most important thing in my life. I don't know about yours. And you could see his brain. And then all of a sudden he went, you're right. He was like, what am I? He said, I'm telling myself that I've not done anything with my life. Being a parent to him as well, because of his childhood, he was like, yeah, you're totally right. But you could just see all these walls falling down in his head. And you could see the power and the glow in him as a human being coming out. And then the day after, he stood in front of a room of 20, 30 people. And he said, I spoke to a guy last night and he's changed my whole perception on life. But that was just by me asking him questions. That wasn't by me telling him what to do.
Yeah.
And
it's the right. I think that's always the sign, whether it be a good friend, a good therapist, a good mentor, or whatever. It's always the sign of they don't give you the answers. They kind of lead you. They probe you with the right questions and they ask why at the right fucking time, like so pinpoint the right time. Kathleen, who's been a guest, she was the second guest I think on the podcast. She's my life coach for 5 years, so it was quite fucking frightening having her on because she knows all the deep, dark, sordid details of my life. But she has this uncanny knack of just letting me go, like as you are and I am, go off on tangents and just start speaking and talking. And she has this really good knack of letting me go like a kite, but keeping hold of that string and then just giving a little tug on that string and saying, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
And then I'll figure out the answer myself.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that why or didn't have that prod or that poke, I'd be going round in spirals and circles and not sort of figuring my way out of things. And I always think that's such a good sign of a good friend, mentor, and therapist.
I often, again, it's something I've learned this year with John, is when we ask people difficult questions, right? So I speak to people on WhatsApp, I speak to people on podcasts, and I'll ask people a certain question, like, I don't know, let's say, what do you want to do in the next 12 months, for example? And they'll say, well, there's not much I can do because, when I was a kid, this happened to me and this happened to me. Yeah, but, and these weren't very nice to me. And after 2 or 3 minutes, they'll say to you, well, what was the question again?
Yeah.
And it's people would rather feel safe than feel happy. Safety becomes before happiness. So when we talk about the brain, the nervous system, right? 5 minutes ago, we were living in caves and we'd sleep through the winter covered in bear skin with meat on the fire. And we'd rather feel safe than happy. And that it's a natural instinct as human beings. But with safety becomes comfort. With comfort comes this sort of unhealthy lifestyle that we can create for ourselves through self-dialogue, through diet, through environment, through nutrition, through the way we look at our life and perceive our life, and how
it's
easy.
The age-old thing is, strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And it's funny. I was just speaking to Nico before I came on here with you, and he mentioned about coaching people, the psychology of coaching people. We got on to talk about stare downs, like boxing stare downs, and how stuff's won and lost at that moment, psychologically. And you might, I don't know whether you watch boxing or UFC or MMA. It's like, I don't know if you're like me, where I will watch ring walks and I will automatically know you're fucked, mate. You're not here. You've lost before you've even entered the ring. You can tell with the way that they look, the way that they carry themselves, and the way that their demeanor is. And quite often it's true, and quite every now and again I get proved wrong.
The first Carl Froch and George Groves fight. Carl Froch walks out and he's singing and he's laughing and he's joking. And I remember saying it, like, something doesn't look right here because he's usually focused. And he got absolutely bingoed everywhere. Granted, he won the fight.
Luckily.
I don't think he should. I think they should have stopped it when they did. When George Groves fucking spangled him in the first round or whatever. But it was only because he's known as Froch, he's got an iron chin, that they allowed it to go on.
Yeah.
Anybody else, they'd stop that fight.
Yes.
But if you listen to Mike Tyson, when he talks about the fear, when he's in the changing rooms and he's afraid, I'm scared, I'm crying. Then I walk down the ring and I could feel myself getting stronger. When I get into the ring, I'm a god. Nobody can touch me. I'm going to kill everyone. And he said that, I can see the fear in a man's eyes when I'm just looking at it. And he's right. I'd shit myself if I was stood in front of Mike Tyson in his prime.
Well, this is the thing. Like, so obviously, this past weekend was Jake Paul and AJ. And obviously, everybody goes on about how Jake Paul's this, Jake Paul's that, and AJ's sold out. And I challenge any motherfucker to stand in a ring across from that behemoth of a 2-time world champion heavyweight and do what he did. Like, don't get me wrong, I think he's fucking stupid, but what courage and bravery to do what he did and literally get his jaw knocked off the bottom of his face.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Commend it wholeheartedly. But going to the point, so in terms of the step, and this goes back to sort of the when we were talking about mindsets, and you were talking about 5 minutes ago, we were living in caves and fighting for his lives, and that, if anybody, there's a book called The Chimp Paradox.
I've got it here.
Is it? Yeah, it's
I've got it over there somewhere.
It's a phenomenal book. And anybody that's sort of questioning whether there's this monkey mind or lizard brain or whatever, when you are in a crowd, and what I want you to do, just try, everybody can try this, stare at somebody, just stare at them and look for their eyes, eye contact, and notice the feeling when they stare back at you, because it's almost instant. You go and avert your eyes straight away. Involuntarily, you kind of look elsewhere. You don't stop. You don't carry on staring at the person, because and that for me is almost proof that still within this grey matter in your brain, there's this survival mode that's kicking in every now and again. You don't stare people in the eyes. We're still monkeys at the end of the day, to the point where that's perceived as a threat. Everybody, we've been in situations where it's what you staring at.
Yeah. It's like the terminology of depression, right? So when we were cavemen, in the winter, when they couldn't go out, they would go into deep rest.
Yeah.
And that's what I sort of give the analogy of depression, is that when we're in a depressive state, the body literally thinks it's dying. So, the blood goes to the vital organs. People say, you've just got to snap out of depression. It's physically impossible.
You can't do it.
Because physiologically, there's a chemical response going on in your body that it's like, right, I need to do as little as possible and preserve, the body. That's what depression's doing, because your brain is creating the perception of there's a possibility we could die here, And it's the same with cavemen. When they would go into hibernation, they would go into deep rest, where they would just sleep with the bed sheets over them and do absolutely fuck all, apart from eat now and then. It's the same thing. It's fight or flight mode. You either fight or you run off. What were they doing when they were cavemen? They'd either fight or they would run away. It's a primal response. And, literally 5 minutes ago, we were fighting for our lives to survive all the time. So,
Well, yeah, I won't want to fight half the fucking animals that were around when we were cavemen.
Oh, no. Well, we'd be dead. We'd be dead.
I'd be dead. 100% I'd be dead. You'd see the light bouncing off my head from fucking miles away. Be like a beacon. So, to sort of round, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Lee. I think it's been fucking awesome. I massively appreciate it. But I think what I kind of want to round off with, and this is, and I don't think there's necessarily an answer, so I'm putting you on the spot. in terms of mental health, and from our perspective, being men's mental health, as it seems, it's only getting worse, or it's becoming more apparent, or it's seen the light of day more. What do you think the solution is? What do you think? How do we turn this sort of pandemic around? What's the first step? And I know, talking. I don't ever like when people say, "Oh, men need to talk about the feelings more." I find that it's a bit of a cop out, because I think a lot of men that I know, a lot of men talk about the feelings constantly. It's just, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know whether it's understanding, whether it's purpose, like we've discussed. What do you believe?
Well, I mean, I seen something. I put a post out the other week that I'm sure it was, I can't remember. I'll throw a number, between 70 and 90% of men who took their own lives this year have sought out some form of therapy, some form of counseling, some form of psychology. So therefore, the talking aspect isn't really working.
Mm.
Men are still killing themselves, even though they're talking. People say they want to break this stigma. The stigma's broken, mate. There's hundreds of thousands of men talking every day, year on, year out. Andy's Man Club is huge.
Yep.
There's multiple people doing what we're doing. There's some huge organizations where men are involved speaking. Self-help, like we said before, self-help podcasts and are being listened to millions of times a day. But yes, men are still killing themselves.
Mm.
Now, I can't answer it. I can only answer it in a generalized way.
Yeah.
Because
We're not going to hold you to this, Lee. We're not going to sort of say Lee's figured out the problem.
Lee's
Leave it to
figured out the
Lee.
answer. But I really believe it's identity, who you are. I think we're that lost as a society. I think this hedonistic version of what life tells you to be, have a nice house, make sure that you've got fucking fake teeth in your mouth, make sure nice cars, jewelry. If you haven't got 500,000 followers on a social media account, you're worthless, and if you've only got 1,000 subscribers, then, life's not very good, is it? Well, I know lads who've got 50,000 followers and they're depressed as fuck,
Yeah.
So let's not, that hedonism, it's false, gives us a false sense of what reality is. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people living in that reality, living for the acceptance of strangers on social media on one of these,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of using this too much. I really, really, truly believe, hands down, we have to design who we are as people. And the easiest way I could describe it is, you take an old wrestling computer game from the early 2000s, SmackDown, where you get to design
Character creation. I
character
love it.
creation. You, as a human being, Lewis, me, you get to design today who you want to be as a person.
Yes.
Who do I want to be for the benefit of me, for the benefit of my family, for the benefit of what I want to do as a person? You get to design what values you want and have. And if you haven't got a piece, like you mentioned jigsaws before, if you're missing a piece of the jigsaw, go and find it. Go and understand what piece is missing and go and find it and put it into the picture.
I
The
like that.
picture's ever present and it's growing every day of the week. When I did my purpose statement, so I literally wrote a purpose statement. And my mentor, so his nickname is the teaspoon. He stirs greatness in people until they feel it themselves. So I
Love
called
it.
myself the painter, because I can't paint for shit. But what I told a story not so long ago about a young boy, and he paints dark pictures, and then one day his paint runs out, so he puts bright colours in, and he starts painting pictures of brightness and love and beauty. And I felt powerful when I was speaking about it. It was only just a story that I'd made up in my head. So John said to me, let's focus on this painting analogy. And it got to the point where I'd wrote my purpose statement, and my statement was, I know it word for word, my purpose is to show that even a canvas can break its own boundaries, holding within it a vast universe of endlessness. And what that means is that as human beings, we can do and be whatever we want to be. If you want to be a fucking astronaut, go and be one. And that sounds corny because you hear believe, achieve, and all this.
But it's true.
But it really is true. I'm
Really,
sitting here having a conversation now about stuff that 2 years ago, if you'd have said, Lee, you'll be talking about belief systems and identity and nervous systems and fucking amygdalas and prefrontal cortexes, and I'd think, you're mental. You are fucking mental. But this is what I'm doing. I know that's what I've done is I've designed it. And when we talk SmackDown, mate, I'm still on, the character's face. I still haven't designed anything else.
That's it. It's a lifelong commitment, yeah. And it's really poignant. The painting analogies bang on, and like when people say it's success is easy or becoming whatever you want is easy. I always struggle with that. It's not easy. It is simple. It is very, very simple. If you want to be a builder, it's not easy. It's fucking hard. Been there, done that. But it is simple. All you got to do is get a qualification, learn how to do it, and away you go. You're simple. On. It is as simple as that. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy at all. It's hard as fuck. But it's the same with every aspect. If you want to be an astronaut, it ain't going to be fucking easy, but it is a pretty simple pathway.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
And I get asked, a girl asked me on social media a couple of weeks ago, how long have you been in recovery? Now, I use the brackets of recovery because I don't even identify with that. I use the terminology discovery.
Oh, I like it.
Just different words, gives different perception. I hate saying, I don't count how many days. Well, it's a week. I had a beard last week. There you are. And somebody asked me, how long have you been in recovery? Now, I know what they mean, and I'm not going to argue with them for the sake of language. And I said, about 12 months, something like that. And they were like, fucking hell, the knowledge you've got, it's like you've been out of it 5 years. And they said to me, how difficult has it been? And don't get me wrong, there's been some really, really difficult moments. But I said to them, it's been straightforward because with the help of John and my fiance, I've designed it. I understand, right, this is what I've got to learn this week. This is what I'm learning. I'm studying this week. Next week, I'm doing this. The week after, I'm doing this. And that's what we've done all year. Go away, Lee, and work on your values for the next 3 or 4 days. Okay. That's all. That's what I'll focus on. I'll focus on values, beliefs, behaviors. Then I'm going to do a couple of weeks of neuroscience. Then I'm going to do this. And that's what I've done. It's been really difficult, but straightforward. And I mean that.
Just bear with me 1 second, Lee. This is this fucking 20-odd episode, and it's the first time I'm going to have to pause to go for a piss. Just bear with me. God damn, that's like, what, fucking 50, 60 hours of recording, and that's the first time it's happened.
Hey, we must have done 2.5 hours here.
Yeah, we're cracking on. One thing, obviously, I know we were sort of rounding it off towards the end then, and I think one thing I want to make note of, and it's really important because it sort of helped me in my life having that person. But every single time that you've mentioned your fiance, your face lights up like a fucking Christmas tree, and it's so. I see it now, like obviously with friends from hockey and lads from hockey and other friends and whatnot. When that right person's in your life, or when that starts to happen, it makes such a huge, huge difference. Coming from somebody that was with the wrong person in the wrong marriage, we had children together, and how different my life was then to now, and now being with the right person and the person that supports me through thick and thin and bad times and shit times, and is obviously always there with the good times. How important has that been for you?
Do you know what, mate? People say this quite a lot, and I genuinely mean it. I'd probably be dead now
Mm.
because I didn't believe in destiny or all these things. But one day, it's about a week or two after I tried to kill myself, and I was getting money out the cash machine to go to the pub, funnily enough. And she walked past me, and I've known her. She lives in the same town with the same age, but we'd never spoke ever in our whole life. And she walked past me in town, and then she calls it dropping a handkerchief. She liked a couple of me pictures on Facebook. So I thought,
I
hey
love
up.
it.
I thought something's. So I messaged her, how you doing? Blah blah blah. And I had some women issues at the time. So I said, look, give me a couple of weeks, sort myself out, so there's no drama involved, and would you let me take you out? And she was like, okay, I don't want any dramas. Whenever you're ready, let me know. So a couple of weeks later, we ended up going out. No, that's a lie. I ended up going around to her house for a cup of tea. And then the night after, I took her out for dinner. And it's just, I never went back to my dad's from then. And I always said I'd never get married again. I was married for 10, 11 years. I was in that relationship for 15, 16 years, and it was toxic.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, some good times, but it it wasn't right. Like you just said there,
Yeah.
I wasn't right, she wasn't right. We weren't right together.
With things like that, hindsight's always 20/20, and you can
Mm,
see it so clearly when you're out of it and on the other end of it that it's like, holy, why were we even together in the first place?
of
It was
course,
so
of
bad
course.
for both of us. And don't get me wrong, I've got the most amazing thing ever out of it, which is my daughter. Like,
Yeah,
unbelievable. But at the same time, it's like, you have to go through that. I wouldn't be the person I am now without have gone
yeah,
through that tumultuous time.
yeah. And it's one of them. I don't talk negatively about anything she's done. I'm over that part of my life. I only take accountability for what I did. And I've done
Mm.
some fucked up things. I was an idiot at times. Um, but with my fiance now, I said I'd never get married again. We got engaged in the Amalfi in Italy in
Congratulations.
September. And
I think I saw the post, yeah, when you were walking.
yeah, and I think, genuinely, honestly, I think she's the best thing to ever walk into my life. And I can't thank her enough, and I probably don't thank her enough. But she knows that
Mm.
without her, I'd be in a completely different position. I'd still be doing what I was doing. I'd be honest, I would. With the ability to accept love from another person isn't allowed until you love yourself.
Mm.
And
Wow. Mm.
she showed me the opportunity to love myself. And by loving myself, I was then be able to love her the way that I should. I'm not perfect. I can still be a lazy bastard after work sometimes. I probably don't help as much with the washing and stuff that I should, but I genuinely love the woman. It's took me a long, long time in my life to realize that everybody accepts love if you accept yourself. That's
Mm.
that's what I've done.
Isn't it mad how everything really, like you were talking about the painting before, everything does start with you. You know, it sounds really egotistical if you look at it, from the outside in, but everything starts from within. Everything starts
Yeah,
with you. Everything
yeah,
starts with your mindset, the way you think, the way you behave, the way you act.
yeah,
There's a principle that I teach my daughter, like quite often. Sometimes because she is stubborn like I was. There's two stories actually. So I remember reading the Bhagavad Gita, if you've ever read it. It's a Hindu Veda. It's really, really good. There's a version, in fact, I'll send it you. There's a version on Audible which has the explanations after each chapter because it's fucking really hard to read without the explanations. But there's a part in it where he talks about, so the premise is Krishna's on the edge of a battle, and the person that he's serving is going to fight his uncle and his cousins, and he doesn't want to. But if he doesn't, then obviously all his men are going to die because he's the He's the big chief. Ultimately, he likens emotions to horses on a chariot. And if you let your emotions run away, then you're going to crash and burn and die. You're the person that's in control of these horses, which are your emotions. You have to keep control to be able to be effective. So I teach her that lesson. But then the other one is the 90-10 principle, which I don't know if you know it, which is basically 90% of what happens to you in your life, you can't control. You have no control over whatsoever. However, you can control that 10%, which massively influences the 90%.
Mm.
So, for instance, if I walked into a pub, which is unlikely to happen at this stage of my life, but if I walked into a pub, went up to the barman, ordered a pint, turned around and shouted abuse at the biggest, ugliest, hardest looking motherfucker in there, the likelihood is I'm going to get my lights put out and put into hospital. So that 90% that I didn't control his fist, I didn't control his attitude, I didn't control anything else, but the 10% that I did control influenced that. I kind of try, or I do tell my daughter, see, you've already had an effect on me there, Lee. I do tell my daughter that control that 10%.
Yeah.
Control that 10%, and what you will find is that 90% starts going in your favor and it starts happening. Right. But it's quite funny how that in essence is manifestation in real world terms.
Yeah, well, so the two ways, what you've just said there, I've learned them a little bit of a different way. So the way I was taught was emotions are the messengers of identity. They're messages sent from who we are as people. So if you're feeling aggressive, then your values have been attacked in one way, shape, or another, whatever that may be. It might be love, empathy, family, whatever, or honesty. When somebody says, "Oh, you lying bastard," well, I'm whatever. And then, so the other one is external and internal motivation, or external, internal direction. So for me, am I ever motivated now by the external? No. Everything that I do now is from an internal process. I used to be motivated, oh, he's got a nice car, therefore I should go and buy a nice car, and it's so when we talk manifestation, say 90% and 10%, the small micro changes that I've made over the last 12 months have allowed my environment to change.
Yes.
The world is still the same. The world is always going to be the world, but your perception, your reality, your environment changes based off your values, your beliefs, your skills, and who you are as a person. It's the old analogy. You don't see any blue cars until you're asked to look for a blue car. Then you start seeing blue cars all over the fucking road.
Don't even go. I play minicar with my daughter so frigging often, and I can't help but see them all the goddamn time now.
And that's it.
It's true.
Go on.
No, I was just saying it's true. Tony Robbins talks about it.
With Theo Von
in some of his seminars. In terms of if you come into a corner and you're thinking, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall. Guess what? You're going to likely hit the wall.
Because you're focused on the wall.
Exactly. Whereas if you think, let's make this corner, the likelihood is you're going to succeed. And it's that perception dictates reality quite more often than what you think.
I say to people a lot, especially people who've just came out of addiction or they've experienced some form of trauma or violence or whatever it may be. Don't run away from the problem. Don't spend your life running away from a problem. Walk towards a solution. And there's a huge difference, because you spend your life running away from a problem, you're always focused on the problem.
Yeah.
If you walk towards a solution, micromanage it, build this identity, you're focused on the solution, the future, the end, the goal, whatever that may be. The past is gone. We can use the past to create the future, or we can use the past to drive our future. There's a difference. And I think that's where a lot of people, you asked me before, how does it change? That there, if I could go back and answer the question again, it'd be, don't run away from the problem, walk towards a solution, whatever that may be.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's important. And I, coming to the end, like you said, it's been 2.5 hours now. Everybody this Christmas, this is obviously Christmas episode. It's going out Christmas Day. First and foremost, wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I think all the listeners that do listen, just take into account that don't come with 2026 is going to be my year, because the universe has likely got a different fucking plan for you. But, I know for certain, one thing that I will take away from this conversation with you, Lee, is making them sort of micro changes. As much as you possibly can do, making then decisions that ultimately, when you come to a fork in the road, does this lead me towards where I want to be or away? Well, I'm going to take the fork that leads me to where I want to fucking be every single time. And before you know it, it's quite surprising how far you come. I do it quite often because I always forget, especially with this podcast, when you start, as you did, sometimes you feel like you're screaming into the void and you're just putting content out there and you're not getting much feedback and you're thinking, oh, is it any good? And then all of a sudden you kind of look back to where you were when you first started to where you are now and you think, holy shit, yeah, that's a hell of a lot of progress. I didn't realize that. And that's same again, it comes down to the perception. You just gives you a bit of perspective on that progress and that element. And it's like what you've done this year is astounding. Going from where you were at the start of the year to where you are now. Looking back, you must, and I'm not saying this egotistically, but you must have a sense of pride in terms of, holy shit, I nearly wasn't here and look where I'm at.
It feels like I've been asked this question a few times. It feels like it's a past life. It's genuinely how it feels. Feels like it was a lifetime. I haven't died, obviously, but that's how it feels. It feels like I've died and woke up as the person that I should be. Or
a version of you has died.
The person that I am. And that's, the memories will always be there, but they just feels different. If the emotional association with a lot of difficult moments in my life have gone. And it's, don't know, it just doesn't feel emotional anymore, When I think back to certain moments that I used to really struggle with, I feel emotional no more. And it's just, I feel as though I'm who I should be.
That's amazing, brother. So if people want to listen to more of you and follow you and see more of your pearls of wisdom, where did he go? What did he do?
Yeah, so the Zito Run Podcast, it's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. A lot of focus on business and more episodes. Obviously, I'll show you, I've got the old podcast room here. So just more of that next year, really. More on, listen, anybody who ever sits there and pretends he knows everything knows fuck all. I know an awful lot. I know a small amount about an awful lot. That's where I am.
I like that. Yeah.
And there's just more learning, more growing, more finding out where my limits are and overcoming my limits and helping as many people as I can and just keep doing, these types of things are difficult because we question ourselves if we're good enough, right? Am I good enough to be doing this? And Tony Robbins talks about it a lot. Lack of self-worth is one of the most defining or internal conversations that we have with ourselves on a daily basis. I'm the same. Am I good enough? Am I not? The answer is always yes, but I still have those conversations, and that's what it's about. I do it
after every single episode. After every single episode I record. Now, we've just had an amazing conversation with some absolute pearls of wisdom dropped from your perspective. I will now, for the next 2-3 hours, analyze my performance and, did I say that right? I kind of let him off with that and I kind of fucked about with that and I didn't do that. And it's that sort of inner critic because of, like I right at the beginning, I hold myself to such a high standard that anybody else watching this, and you will have gone away from this going, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. Whereas I'll be in the gym in an hour going, fuck's sake, I did this and I didn't do that. And why didn't I just hold on and not go for a piss when I went for a piss? And it's that sort of element. Because we are our own worst critics.
Yeah.
But anybody listening, have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself in moderation. And look forward to seeing you and presenting some more awesome episodes in 2026. So yeah, thank you very much, Lee. Have a great Christmas,
and you.
catch you later.
Cool. Ta-ra, mate.
Bye-bye.